Welcome back to the summit. I am so happy to welcome Lisa Patrick to the summit. Lisa was the CEO of Extra Credits, has been a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, and is now a startup advisor, entrepreneur, award-winning podcast host, co-founder of Belongify, investor, and speaker. She is highly sought after for her unique abilities in operations and marketing. So welcome to the summit, Lisa.
Oh, Pamela, I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, such a joy to have you here. And I'm so excited to talk to you because you have some incredible insights into this topic. I know. So I want us to just start out talking about this idea of authentic identity and what that means to you.
Yeah, so authentic, number one, and most people know this about me. I hate the word authentic. Let's just call it as it is, real. Let's just be real,
Love it.
who we are, up front, center, and that will get us so much farther than trying to be this authentic person. Because really, how do you do that? Like, how do you really be authentic? Just be yourself.
Right.
Truly, be yourself. And people will gravitate towards you. Like, you can't go wrong because there's nobody else. There is nobody else in the world but you. So just be you.
Right. So just being real. Love it. Yes.
Yeah.
And so for you, how did you really tap into that in relation to your career and the things, not just your career, but the things that you've done in your life that are important to you?
Ooh, that's that's like a 6-barrel loaded question. You know what? It's funny because we have difficulty seeing ourselves as how other people see us, right?
Yes.
And so it's very easy for me when I'm working with brands to help them and navigate through what's their message and who essentially they are as a human being and why people are charismatically gravitated towards them, right? But you and I both know is so much more difficult to do that for ourselves.
Right.
It just is because we're
Absolutely.
emotionally attached to ourselves, and not the self-sabotage component of it, but it is difficult to see the forest through the trees, right? Like, we really can't. And so that's why having people like you, Pamela, are so great, because you're able to give us guidance and direction as to what you see and how we can reveal our unique identity.
Well, and I love that because I think that we feel this pressure, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what, I don't know, what is my authentic identity? I mean, what does that mean? How do I really do that? And so having sort of a baseline to go off of, like a starting point almost is, I think for a lot of us, just that little boost we need, right? To sort of
Yeah.
get the process going.
I hired a really great lady who is a personal friend of mine as well, because I was having trouble. I'm like, I know I get up in the morning, I'm passionate. I love to help and give people guidance and light their fire, right? Like,
Right.
it's the best thing in the world to see somebody's eyeballs light up magically when something clicks in their brain. It's like you can see it instantly.
Right.
But that, how do you articulate that? Like, how do I articulate that in a way that makes sense? And so I spent the last year in a personal journey for myself, trying to figure out, why do I do what do I do? Not how do I do it, because that's the easy part. And what has always been super easy for me. But the why has always been difficult. I instinctively know that I do what I do, but how do I articulate it in a way that other people can, embrace it and wrap their arms around it and say, yes, like, that's who I want to be with. I want to belong with that person, right?
Right.
And so when I figured it out, with the help of somebody else, full transparency, because, like, again, can't see your own shit.
Yep.
It was like I was walking around on 4 legs, and now I could stand up straight. Like, I don't know if that's the right analogy, but now all of a sudden, everything that I do is grounded by defining of, how do I help others move forward in their greatness? And if I ask myself that question, that is my unique ability to be able to really truly see and envision and bring process and systems and guidance into how I help them move forward in their greatness. And when I'm struggling with, like, somebody pulls a really dumb move in my world, and we all know what happens, we have those relationships, ask myself, okay, what am I going to do that helps them move forward in their greatness, regardless of what they've done, said, or intend to do, or their intentions. And I think when we figure that out, it guides everything else that we do. Whether you're a CEO of a big company and you're trying to determine what is the company vision, what is the company's unique ability, what is the company's mission, and then what is the CEO's individuality attached to that. And when we figure those things out, it just, everything makes so much more sense moving forward, and people can attach themselves to that.
Well, and this is obviously something that you've had to do in your own life, and you've had some transitions and some pivots, and
Yep.
like you were just saying, this year was sort of another one of those types of transitions. So what are some of the tools and resources that you really recommend people use when they're starting and then going through this process?
You know what? You need a sounding board. And I don't know how to really emphasize that more than anyone. And it's not, maybe it's you, Pamela, whoever, it doesn't matter. You need a sounding board to just over communicate their listening skills for you, to pick up those sound bites that are in your natural talk. So craziest thing today happened, and I thought, oh my God, I got to talk to Pamela about this today, because this will be so profound for the listeners.
Love
So
it.
I'm talking with a gentleman who's really struggling with, he's got this great business, he's going to do a little over $1 million this year. He only did 200,000 last year. Like, it's growing exponentially. And he's trying to define, how does he bring his authentic self, or his real self, to the business to really take it to that next level. And so we were talking about it, and I just said, I'm just going to ask you questions. And as we talked and uncovered, the sound bites naturally came out in the conversation. They're already there for everybody. It's just, you need somebody to actually sit and really listen to what you're saying, so that they can pick those sound bites up for you, so that you can continue forward.
I think that is so powerful. And I know for me in my own journey, this particular process has been a struggle. It's like, we all know we're unique. We all know that we bring uniquenesses to the table, and that we can only serve people in the way that we can serve people. No one else can do it that way.
That's
But
right.
to frame it and to put it into words and to share it with people, like you're saying earlier, can be really challenging. So I love this idea of having someone else sort of saying back to you, oh, so this is what you're saying. So this is what that means to you. This is what that looks like. Because then all of a sudden we get to sort of see it as if we are the audience, in a sense.
Exactly. And I think the biggest mistake that most people make is that they believe their unique ability is about themselves. I know that sounds strange, but in reality, it's not. Your unique ability is the value that you add to somebody else's life and how they see it. That's your unique ability. It's not how you see it. And how, like, when you look at business, for instance, and I was just listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about the value proposition to your customer, and how so many businesses get it wrong because they believe the value is X, but the customer actually knows the value is Y. And so they're out in the market telling the message of X when all the customer hears is Y. Right? Like, so it's so important that we always think about, how does somebody else perceive us? And if you don't know, go ask. Ask the people that are closest to you. Do you believe, when I finally figured out my why, my purpose, which helping people move forward in their greatness. And I asked the people closest to me, not the people that I love that will tell me anything. Yes. I actually asked the people that work with me, is this me? And resoundingly, yes. And so then that's when you know you have a unique ability, because the message is heard by them, not by what you believe it to be.
And that's such an important distinction, because I do think that that's a really easy trap to get caught in, especially if you're sort of new and you haven't had the opportunity to kind of go through, say, process of elimination for what really seems to fit and what doesn't with your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you think about, so this particular gentleman I was talking to today, he's in the sign business. He creates signs, but he's actually not in the sign business. He's in the people business.
Mhm.
His job is to create beautiful attention to storefronts so that people want to be invited in.
Yeah.
The signs just happen to be the vehicles that he uses, right? It's just like Apple. Apple's job is to create really great software so we can invite the world into our world, right? Create
Right.
beautiful images and so forth. Just happen to be computers and phones that we use to do that. That's the vehicle. But that's not what they're in the business of.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. And that's an important distinction as well. It's just to remember that whenever we're doing business with people. And so to be keeping that perspective around what we're doing. So share with us a little bit about how you've done that with your own business.
I'm all about relationship. So it is like, I believe the secret to success, the keys to the kingdom is your network, is your relationship. And what you pour in is what you get out.
Yeah.
So if you're transactional in nature, then transactions is what you're going to get. If you are relationship driven and it's a long-term play, you will have long-term success and you'll have a long-term client and a whole Rolodex of referrals because that's what you've poured into it.
I think that's really, really valuable because I think right now there's so many people that have been trying to sort of pivot and make a transition into having a business, having an online business, what have you. And there's sort of this sense that like you want it to just happen, right? I mean, that it just should just appear in front of you in a sense. But to know that this really is a process, just like growing any other business, that even though we have this incredible technology and we're in front of a lot of people, that there's elements to it that go a little bit deeper than just throwing some things up on social media, crossing your fingers, hoping people show up.
And nowadays it's hard, right, Pamela? Because you've got to like attention. You have to have a lot of attention to get attraction, right? And it takes a lot. It's not like it used to be, right? Like we look at some social media influencers and some really great influencers in the world. I'm not going to mention any names, but their world, when they broke out 10 years ago on Facebook at 67 cents to acquire a customer, costs us $6.70 now, right? It's highly competitive. It looks differently. If you're an online influencer who's created this massive following of selling courses, for instance, well, yeah, now let's see them. If we took everything, stripped everything away from some of those experts today and said, now start over, what would their business, that would look very differently, right? Because they were in a market in a different time. So I think people need to really be conscientious of when you're building a business and you're trying to do it through social media. It takes mountains and mountains and mountains of money to do that in the right kind of way to be really big and successful.
I think that's a really great point because it's sort of easy to get lost in all of the mechanics, right? There's just so many different things that you could do, and social media is certainly one of them that stays at the forefront, I think, for most people, because it's sort of like, okay, well, if I'm not doing ads, at least I can put something out there organically. But just to know that, while that's a piece of the puzzle, it's definitely not the whole puzzle.
No, it's a tool. It is one tool in your entire arsenal of business opportunities, right? It's just a tool that you use. It's not the be all end all. It's kind of like when Facebook went down, what was that, a month or so ago? Right. And everyone, oh my God, my business.
No Facebook for a day.
No doubt. You relied on one tool to run your entire business.
Right.
And I almost guarantee you some of those people are still running with that one tool. They never learned the first time, right? Like you have to be careful because you can't be reliant on somebody else's platform to drive your entire business. Because at some point they could just say, "I'm going to turn it off." And then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. And with that, I think it goes back to what you're saying about how really it's, a matter of building relationships, and how do you
Yeah.
go about that, and how do you think of it, yes, maybe in the short term, but also the long term. So talk to us a little bit about how you approach that.
Yeah, so I have a law enforcement background, and so I think I was taught. Well, I believe I was taught. I was practicing the disc platinum rule long before I even knew it existed. Right? I am fundamentally believe that when you treat others how they'd like to be treated, you are so much farther ahead. That the golden rule really is broken. It's not about how I want to be treated, because Pamela, you might not want to be treated the same way that I want to be treated.
Right.
Right. And it's my responsibility, not yours, but my responsibility to find out who you are and how you receive messages and tailor my behavior of communication accordingly. It doesn't
Mhm.
change who I am fundamentally. It
Sure.
just changes how I communicate with you.
Mm.
And I think that's a lesson that we all need to, learn is how are you communicating to others?
Yeah, that's super valuable. And, we've sort of come to the time, I think, where we have opportunities to connect with a lot of different people and to build relationships that we haven't in the past. But knowing how to go about it is a big piece of that puzzle. So I love that you say that.
You
So,
froze.
with that, then talk to us just a little bit about what you're up to now and over the next year, and how people can connect with you.
Well, you can always find me on social media, ironically, after we've just had this
Right.
conversation. But you can find me Lisa, I'm accessible. Like, and I think that like I am not this, crazy influencer, and even see big CEO of this massive company. I always, regardless of where I go in life, want to make sure that I'm always accessible to people because I love people. Don't get me wrong, I'm an introvert actually, but I do love people. And so you can find me anywhere on social media, lisapatrick.ca, what have you. But I think, I want to leave people with this thought, and that is that understanding fundamentally who's sitting across the table from you, people love to talk about themselves.
Mhm.
And asking questions, like I wrote a book with Jim Cathcart. We wrote, and we released it a couple months ago, Intelligent Curiosity. And I think the more curious you are about others and you ask questions of them in a way that helps them position themselves as the expert and not you, you actually push your relationship with somebody tenfold very quickly. And so I think it's, we have to remember that we live in a world where it's about somebody else, right? And when we ask those questions about them and we really over communicate our listening skills, and find the gaps in their lives, in their business, and fill it. And not from a like, I want X amount of dollars, but genuinely add value to them. You'll either get their business or you'll get their friend's business, one or the other, because it's just how the world works.
I love that you say that, because I think that sometimes we forget how work isn't always work, business isn't always
Yeah,
business, right?
exactly.
While it's easy to get stuck in that mindset, the fact of the matter is, 9 times out of 10, when you end up getting a client, it's because you've got a relationship with someone who knows them, or because you built that relationship with them. And so, and I think you're really, really good at this, actually, because, you're one of those people, and I see this a lot. You're out connecting with people consistently, and you're affirming people, you're sending positive messages to people, so it's something that you do naturally, I think. But I want to make the point that what you were saying is so critical, because people will see that, people will notice that. And, that's whether that person automatically reaches out to you, sends you, that's maybe going to happen sometimes. But they may not ever reach out to you, but they will notice you. You will be on their radar. And when something does come across their desk that they think, oh, that really looks interesting, and it's something that you've put out there, then all of a sudden they've got that tie that they didn't know would be there. And so you've already got a little bit of connection. And so just that little piece, and this is a perfect example. You being here today to share out your message with people, right? You don't know who's going to hear this. You don't know if anybody out there already knows you or not, right? But when they hear you and see you, all of a sudden they've got this whole new person in their life that didn't exist before, that they, when they come to an issue that we've discussed today, they're going to think, oh my gosh, I remember listening to that lady on that summit, right? And that's how it works.
It is
really
how it works.
That simple.
How you and I, right? Like we've known each other for a number of years and our paths have crossed in several different ways.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And I've always gravitated to you because you are not authentic, you are genuine. And there's a big difference. It's kind of like being nice and being kind. There's a really big difference between somebody who's being kind versus somebody being nice. Yes. And the same is with being genuine, real, or authentic. It's the same principles. I think that people forget that you just need to show up all in, regardless. When you're in the moment, you need to be, and Glenn Morshower talks about this a lot of time, just be all in that moment, present in that piece of time, 100% there. And when you are, people, like you said, Pamela, people recognize it. People know that about you. They know that you are genuinely giving. That is just who you are to your core. And so people will just show up for you because of that. No other reason.
Love that.
That is a unique ability.
I was just going to say, and that's just the power of uniqueness. When we show up as our unique self, that's what connects us to people.
100%. And I think, when you fake it, people can like now, I think more than ever, people can see it and hear it. So when I was talking to this gentleman today and I said, okay, tell me what you do. You don't know me, tell me what you do. And he started off with, I help people, like it was very, right. I'm like, nah, wrong. Try again. Like I can read through that. I can shut my eyes and I can hear that is not you. Yeah. Like 15 minutes later, he had it down because I could hear it in the tonality of his voice, that was actually him being authentically, genuinely real. And people will buy that all day long.
Love that. And that in and of itself, I mean, that's a superpower that you have to be able to go through that process with someone and help them identify just in that amount of time, what message it is that they really want to share with the world. And that is an incredible, incredible thing. So for those of you out there that are listening, if you're trying to figure out if you're starting a business, or maybe you've started one and you're just struggling, not really sure what your next steps are, how to move forward, or really how to get the message out there that you really want to share with people, then you obviously know now that Lisa is a fabulous resource for that. And not only that, but she's a great person. You're just going to have fun and enjoy getting to know her. So I just want to thank you again for being here with us. I know that we have only this was the tip of the iceberg of your knowledge and insight, but I want to thank you for sharing these gold nuggets with us today. It's really been a pleasure.
Thanks, Pamela. I look forward to having you on That Problem Solved, my new show in January.
Thank you.
Let's find a problem and solve it for others.
I can't wait. That will be amazingly fun.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you all for being here. And thank you again, Lisa, for being with us. Bye, everyone.